Let me go ahead and do my screen share. And our topic is cancer and mineral deficiency. Let me have a word of prayer. Because our Heavenly Father is all in all. Our Heavenly Father, we give thanks and praises to you. Thank you for those who remember, who sacrifice their precious sleeping hours and their time to share with us in this subject matter and discussion on cancer and mineral deficiency. I know this information may be a little bit different to what most have learned. Nevertheless, Father, I pray that you will just give confirmation to the hearts of your children of that which is truth. We thank you and we praise you, Father, in your Son's name. Hallelujah. All right, so cancer and mineral deficiency. Are you ready? All right, let's go ahead and as we talk about this subject matter, our standard definition, of course, of cancer from the dictionary, a disease caused by an uncontrolled division of abnormal cells in a part of the body. A malignant growth or tumor resulting from the division of abnormal cells. So this is our typical definition that we're familiar with in medical science today. I am coming to you not from the point of view of medical science, because I am neither a medical doctor nor one who poses as such, but I come to you with the knowledge of body chemistry, which is a completely different science to medical science. And the reason why this is unique for me in this presentation is because those who I have learned from understood this here disease, cancer. Dr. Carey Reams, who started up the biological theory of ionization way back from in the 1930s. And so he created equation for perfect health in which all the nutrients and mineral, which I'll show you a little bit more on that.
Yeah.
He was able to deal with 10,000 cancer patients, as the record
Yeah.
says, and he lost 3. So this information, I'm coming to you directly what he taught us
Yeah.
what cancer is. All right. And please, if there is background noise, please mute yourself. That would be nice. So here's the equation that he coined for perfect health, in which all the nutrients and minerals are in proper ratio within the body. Disease symptom of any kind doesn't show up. This is unique because he was a mathematician, a biophysicist, agricultural scientist. He had all the qualifications to look at a cell from many different angles. He didn't just see it from one aspect, but he was able to see the cell from looking at the soil, looking at the plants. As a matter of fact, he was such a sharp gentleman that he, based upon the amount of energy he put in the soil, he was able to tell exactly how many citrus was going to be set on the tree based on the energy in the soil. Now, he was able with these numbers to just to give you a little scope of where I am coming from. Not to say I am able to do all these things that he did, but to show you the scope of these numbers, he was able to see in a person with these numbers, anything from an ingrowth toenail to a tumor or a mass anywhere. He worked for Florida Hospital for 30 years, and he would do the chemistry on the patients. And he would tell the physicians where the problem was, what the problem was. As long as they follow his instruction, they never missed it. All right. So that's the background. So here we go talking about cancer and mineral deficiency. This equation dealing with perfect health. We're going to focus in on that cell debris there. You will get to appreciate that in the equation particularly. All right, so now Dr. Reams coined some terms because he didn't want to get mixed up with the medical terms. So he coined for perfect cell, he called a perfect cell alpha cell. Then once the cell has lost so much energy and ready to be exchanged, he called that cell a delta cell. When the cell dies completely, he calls that an omega cell, all right? So these are terms that he coined. Now, when the cells are perfect, they're giving off energy and taking on certain amount of energy. But when the healthy cell reaches its climax of growth in its life cycle, it must be replaced by another cell. So it sends a message to the brain, and the brain sends a message to the liver with the correct programming for the cell that is being replaced. And as we will see from here, what happens if the nutrients to build a new cell is not available to the liver. We will see what will happen. But in essence, from an alpha cell, when it leaves the stage of being alpha or a perfect cell, then it becomes delta cell. It is the natural process that as delta cells, it will be replaced. It shouldn't have to be retained in its location for a long period of time to the point where it becomes a completely dead cell. It should not have to, but as you will see, it does happen. All right. Now it's important to note that baby chicks change all of their cells every 2 days. We call that base exchange. All right, that is the base exchange. Now, likewise, for us, we as men and women, our base exchange is 6 months. Every 6 months, we are supposed to be a brand new set of cells to be in perfect health, to maintain perfect health. Well, the teeth takes 2 years to grow out, so it will take the teeth about a couple of years to grow completely out. All right. Now let's go back and look at this here. So we have the alpha cell going on perfect health until it gets to the point where it has to be replaced. So the message begins to be sent to the brain saying that these cells, let's say the kidney cells, or let's say the liver, let's say a stomach cell, it needs to be replaced. All right. But if the nutrient is not available to exchange that to build a new cell in its place, what happens? The delta
I
cell
think
is
she
retained
knows,
and it
but
continues to get
I think she
larger and
was
larger until it
Because of
breaks
all the
connection
wrong
with
things
the
this woman was
nerve
doing. I think her
and
mind was
becomes
washed.
a dead
Because I
cell.
know
Now
Shaliza
I'm asking
things like
you
Please,
that.
to
please
She
mute,
jumps on us.
mute,
If it was anybody,
mute
she would
yourself.
please mute
If you're
yourself.
not
with no
speaking,
respect too, should have said,
please
in
mute yourself.
this or something, cover your mouth or something. But
We're
it's
asking
her now. She can't say anything.
Okay,
someone to
someone
Please
with
mute
an
yourself.
So she coughs on her
M,
hands, on
please
everything, and
Mr.
she covers
yourself.
Father, go
everything,
ahead
our
and mute
doors and
them.
everything, the doorknobs and everything.
Go ahead and mute
Oh,
them.
that's filthy, man.
Okay. All right. So the situation is,
She's not muted yet. I'm gonna request that you mute yourself. Samsung SM936W. Please
okay.
mute yourself.
All right. Thank you. All right. Now, so it was not
Thank you.
intended that the delta cell be retained within its location for a prolonged period of time before exchange. But if the nutrients are not there, it is retained and it continues to get larger and larger, which I'm going to give you some details as to why it is getting larger, right? But eventually, when it becomes an omega cell, it has broken connection with the nerve. It is a dead cell. All right. So the issue is lack of minerals cause delta cells to be retained until they become omega or dead cells. That's the unfortunate situation. If the minerals are not there, it is retained in the location. Now, I mentioned to you that a message will be sent over the nerve, particularly the vagus nerve, is going to carry the program in to the liver. The nerve from the cell goes to the brain. The brain communicates to the liver by way of the vagus nerve, telling the liver, you need to build this part, this amino acid, for these groups of cells here, or for this particular cell. If the nutrients are there, the liver will do just that. All right. So it will build a skeletal amino acid, release it in the bloodstream. It will be worked on by certain other areas in the body, but eventually, when it reaches the location, in this case, the stomach, we use an illustration of a damaged tissue in the stomach, is going to be plated on to the nerve and become a new cell. The old cell will be thrown out at that point, and a new one is built in its place. At that point, the message is no longer going to the brain that there's a problem right here. All right. Okay, so here we have it, the issue with the stomach. And when new cells are built, we get a brand new stomach, no problem, no trace whatsoever. And this is indeed the process that our Creator ordained that, remember, we were created to live forever, until sin put a pause in this program. All right, so a new cell is built into the place where the problem once existed. As the old cell is thrown out and a new one is built in its place. The delta cell was replaced. It never became an omega cell. That's important because the delta cells don't have to become omega cells. The only reason why they are retained and become omega cell is because the nutrients are not available for the liver to begin to make those amino acids, which is eventually going to form that cell. It's not there. So it's retained and it becomes a dead cell. Okay? Now, when we look at the 0.04 M in the equation, which I showed you, 0.04 M is 40,000 particles or 40,000 cells per liter of urine in perfect health. So in other words, when there's perfect health, there will be still base exchange going on. That's a normal process, but it is mathematically calculated to be precise, all right? And only 40,000 per liter or 0.04 M, all right? M is for million, all right? Now, in the event that there's mineral deficiencies, and so the numbers are away from perfect. At this point, naturally, we're going to have more dead cells or cells that have been changed, such as the delta cells, floating around in the body. And so it's going to be carried out through the urine. At this point, we need to see it would be at least a 4M, 4 million cells, all right? And you know what it is, for every one particle you can see in the urine, there are 20,000 others that you're not able to see with the naked eyes. So when you see two particles in a liter, that would be equivalent to 2 particles, 40,000. That would be perfect, all right? But only if all the numbers are perfect. So what will happen to the number of dead cells coming out if the mineral deficiency, now my thing here is kind of blocking that last line down there. Okay, my little toolbar there. Okay, all right, but we'll move on. The number of dead cells would naturally increase when now nutrients begin to be available and new cells are being built. So because old cells, dying cells, dead cells are now going to be sloughed off, thrown out in large measures. So as a person is improving in their health, the amount of cell debris that's floating around in their system would be much greater. Are you with me? Follow me now. And this is an important point when you look at the urine, because the urine is a channel where all the dead cells come out through the urine. That which we can see, some goes off as heat and electrical energy, right? So when you look at a urine specimen and it's so cloudy, it's so concentrated, that indicate a gross amount of deficiencies, a gross amount of vitamin C deficiency, gross amount of other deficiencies, and the person is just not drinking enough water. If they were drinking enough water, then they could flush the dead and dying cells out and make it easier for them. At this rate, the body is retaining lots of those particles. You know, this is typically a passing moment. Just want to show you water will be great benefit to help to flush the dead cells and dying cells out of the system. If we don't drink water, then those cells are going to be retained, and I'm going to show you it's going to create problems. All right, so what will happen if the liver does not have the correct minerals that's needed for, let's say, the stomach in this case, or it could be any cell, because all the cells in our bodies are replaced every 6 months, barring the teeth, which grows out in 2 years. What will happen? Let's look at that again. Again, we have the alpha cell. It is not intended that the delta cells are retained for so long until they lose so much energy that they break connection with the nerve and die, become dead cell. That's not the process. But if the minerals are not available, because the cells will be released only when a new cell is available to be built. So then the delta cell will be thrown out and a new one will be ionized in its place. But if the mineral is not there, the body hold on to it, and we shall see what happened. Now, typically, the omega cells, which are held on to, those are cancer cells, all right? Those are your cancer cells that are retained in the location. They are decaying rotten flesh, so to speak. And you will see more as I will give you some more details and exactly the process that we're looking at. So this could be in the prostate. The cells are deficient, lacking in mineral. A lot of times it's manganese for the prostate. For the brain, it's potassium. They're key nutrient for each organ. And when those key nutrients are lacking on account of lacking in the diet or on account of a weakened gastric juice, then these organs will wear out, their cells will be retained, they will become omega cells, cancer cells, and, unless things are done, then we're going to have problems. Now, when we consider the fact that if you have cells dying off and they're not being thrown out from their location, let's say in this case the stomach, and they're not being sloughed off or thrown out or removed from their location, then if you can take a scope of the tissue that's there, you can see that it won't be a healthy looking environment. And for this, I want to help you to understand something that will be going on in those tissue that are decaying and amassing together. For this, there is way back in the 1816 to 1900 thereabout, we have Anthony Béchamp versus Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur came up with the idea that a germ caused the disease. Béchamp, on the other hand, championed the cause, stating that it's a disease condition, a disease condition result in the viruses, the bacteria, and the yeast and the germs. So now let's see what he says about that. Béchamp discovered what is known as molecular granulation. All right, they call them microzymas. And Robert Young, PhD, he has this to say: microzymas are independent living element that exists within all living things and is both the builder and recycler of organism. So these microzymas are independent living substance within all tissue, within all organism. All right, now let's keep following. It says, in a state of health, these microzymas act harmoniously and fermentation occurs normally, that is, beneficially. But in condition of disease, microzymas become disturbed and change their forms and function. They evolve into microscopic form, germs that reflect the disease. So these microzymas, which can be beneficial to the tissue, will evolve based upon the terrain or the environment that they find themselves in. Just giving you a briefing on the microzymas so you can see what would be taking place in the tissue, in decaying tissue, in these omega cells, especially as they are retained in their location. Robert Young says he observed the evolution of the microzymas. He says that bacteria, yeast, fungus, and mold are morbid evolutions of healthy cells caused by a disturbance in the central electromagnetic balance of the cell, causing the evolutionary cycle from a diseased cell to bacteria. Bacteria become the yeast and or fungus. Yeast and or fungus becomes the mold, which is the end result of the deterioration cycle. That's in his book, Sick and Tired, page 22. Just bear with me there. So you notice he pointed out that there's an evolutionary process that takes place going from the microzymas to germs, bacteria, yeast, fungus, mold. This process is called pleomorphism. All right. Pleo means many, morph, form. All right. So in other words, the evolutionary process in those tissues now, we're focusing on those cancerous tissue, will have evolved from germs, bacteria, yeast, fungus, and mold. All those little critters will be having a heyday in those tissue based upon the chemistry that is there for them. All right. And you heard one doctor, oncologist, talk about the fungus involvement in the cancer. And they have found fungus in the cancerous tissue. But he says his theory was cancer is a fungus. All right. But we're going to get the facts here. Is fungus involved? Yes. All right. Is yeast involved? Yes. It's just a cycle that's going on. Now, some of you may have heard of Rife, Raymond Rife, I think it was his first name. And he was a great scientist. A major offshoot of Rife's work was his ability through several pleomorphic stages to transform a virus he found in cancer into a fungus. Plant the fungus in an asparagus-based medium and produce a Bacillus E. coli, the type of microform indigenous to the human intestine. This was repeated hundreds of times, right? So he witnessed, he experienced this process, this evolutionary process going from one form to another. It continues. So Rife showed that the pleomorphic capacity of microform goes beyond the bacterial level to the fungal level, and its progression to the last stage, mold. Included in this cycle are the very important stage intermediate to microzymas and bacteria, the protein complex, usually referred to as viruses, and their immediate descendant, the cell wall deficient form. So the viruses just come in as a transition as it moves from the macrozymas to the bacteria. All right. But where is it coming from? Because the terrain of the tissue is changed. Therefore, those microzymas that was there beneficial to its environment to build and to support, now the terrain is changed, so they undergo a cycle of evolution which can become destructive. All right, so we'll have in a cancerous tissue, we can expect to find any or all of the microbes there possibly could be. And by the way, they don't have to come from anybody else. They come from right within. The environment is produced once the terrain is there. So in any cancerous decaying flesh, there will be microbes in abundance. All right. So let me peel back and go a little bit deeper into what's actually occurring. As Dr. Reams put it, I want to call your attention that cells should be replaced before they become an omega cell, a carcinoma cell. And the only reason that they become a carcinoma or an omega cell is that they have outlasted their ability to function and then they rot, and then there is cancer or carcinoma. This is from a man who knew. So in other words, what we're looking at is
I don't know what to tell you.
the delta cell will begin to
I'm not the
lose
one
some of
presenting
its nitrogen.
I'm not the one
And
presenting it. I believe he might be.
basically,
I don't know. I think so. I
please
hope
mute
so.
yourself. Please mute yourself. All right. The delta cell will begin to lose some of its nitrogen and progressively lose more and more nitrogen until it loses all the nitrogen, breaks connection with the nerve, now a dead cell or omega cell. In a healthy person, the dead cells may stay in the area for 2 to 3 days. The expansion and contraction of the neighboring cells will push out the dead cells, which is carried away by the lymphatic vessels and released into the blood, which then it goes its way. All right. But a person who is sick, very mineral deficient, the dead cells may stay in the area for weeks and months until the nerve decays ahead of the deterioration, and so they will have no pain. So the more minerally deficient a person is, then those dead cells, an omega cell, may just sit around there and more cells dying off because the nutrient requirement for all of those cells in the area is going to be the same. So if one is deficient, then so will the other one be, and it's just a whole school of deficient cells that are dying off. Now, this is how, okay, this is what we have here. I'm supposed to have some circles there. I was showing in that, let me go back there, all right? Let me go back and get these cells. I'll show it to you this way. Let's see. All right. This thing here is, okay, move that out of the way. Change, none. So then we should be able to get this. No, still don't show up. All right, so I will show it to you just like it is there. All right, this is what the primary of all the cells in our body is like, okay? If you notice number one, nitrogen, the ring of the nitrogen that's in the core, all right? And then the next element out, you know, as we look at atoms moving around, would be the next element out, that would be the hydrogen. Number two, the next one, the carbon. The next one is going to be oxygen. So we have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Carbon is the governor for moisture in all biological life. Carbon will hold 4 times its weight in moisture. So we have the carbon there in that ring, closely holding the H2O, or the water, or moisture, in its with it there, all right? So we have the carbon still governing the moisture. And then after that, we have the calcium ring. Then we have the phosphate. Then we have the potassium. Now, This is the primary of all the cells. This is the arrangement. And I want to point out here, calcium is used more by weight and volume in all biological life. Calcium, we know it's in the bones, but it's in every cell in the body. Calcium is required for its formation, all right? So I just want to point that out, because when you hear me talk about the nitrogen that is going to be lost from the cell, this is the nitrogen that I'm speaking about. This would be, in the conventional term, what they call the nucleus of the cell. Okay. All right, so now let's get back to where we were. All right, so here's a little detail as to what's going on as Dr. Manthe describes the process. As the cell loses some of its rhythm and undergoes deterioration, a tiny gas pocket will form somewhere within the cell. Water will be attracted into that cavity to keep the cell from collapsing. When the water comes in, it will start to be heated and then will begin to expand. As the water expands, pressure is exerted upon other areas within the cellular structure, causing friction that creates heat. With an increase in heat, there's an increase in the expansion of water and more structures in the cell break down. This vicious cycle results in the entire cell beginning to swell. As I showed you the delta cell, they're getting larger, which causes pressure on neighboring cells. This delta cell continues to expand with more moisture and is incorrectly said to be growing in size. Finally, it reaches a stage at which it loses its connection with the nerve and dies. That's what's going on. That's a little detail. Let me put it in another way as I see. All right. Let me put it this way. The nitrogen leaves as electrical energy, taking some of the moisture with it. It's the first thing that usually happens. Of course, it don't leave completely in one shot, all right, because it's a process. Next, the carbon ring is affected. The carbon starts to break down, oxidize, and become carbon dioxide. Now, if the carbon dioxide stays within the cell, it's going to be filling part of the cavity that was created by the loss of the nitrogen. And if it stays within the cell, carbon, which is a governor for moisture, attracts the water into the cell. And as the moisture comes into the cell, the water that's within the cell is going to be heated up. It's going to heat it up so it expands. This creates friction, which creates additional heat, which contributes to a greater loss of energy from the cell. The cell continues to deteriorate in all this time, losing more and more energy, so more moisture continues to come into the cell. The cell moves from a small, dense, firm cell to a much larger, softer, boggier cell, which is incorrectly said to be growing. All this time, the messages are going back up through the nerve to the brain, and the brain is trying to tell the liver to manufacture something to exchange the cell. But the parts aren't there. The pieces that need to be used by the liver to make the amino acid are not present, and so this deterioration continues. Finally, at one point in time, it loses its connection with the nerve. The cell breaks right off from the nerve, is shed off as a dead cell, an omega cell or cancer cell. And like I mentioned, if it's a sick person, then those dead cells are going to be retained in the area and stay there for weeks and months. That's decaying flesh, friends. All kinds of microbes. That presents a threat to the rest of the body. So nature is naturally going to try to ward off or protect the rest of the system so it may encapsulate it. Especially if you don't have a strong immune system functioning in your behalf, then, you know, the next thing is nature is going to just maybe form a protein coating around that thing. So once again, if the minerals are available to the liver will build the amino acids. The liver has to make some 5 billion different amino acids per day to keep us in perfect health, and 6 billion in a lifetime. Okay? So if the amino acids are there with the proper nutrients, then it will be built, and as it goes through in the bloodstream, when it gets to the area that the message is still going through to the brain, it will be ionized, and the old cell will be thrown out and a new one will be built in its place. So once again, so alpha cells will last for 6 months. In 6 months, they're supposed to be replaced. And you can even mark your nails. Your nail's supposed to grow out in 6 months. So if something is wrong with your nail, you can mark it. And in 6 months, it should grow out, of course, based upon your state of health. Okay. So then we can have perfect cells all over the body and enjoy good health. If we have perfect cell all over, complete perfect, no mineral deficiency, this is what our body chemistry numbers would look like. Perfect health, 6 billion amino acids per day. The gastric juice would be strongest. The enzymes would be strongest. You got the maximum amount of vitamin C floating around in the blood at any one time. Base exchange will occur on schedule every 6 months. Brand new set of cells. So now, here are some questions. What are some factors that create mineral deficiency? So I hope that you didn't miss it. It was because of mineral deficiency, lack of mineral, that caused the cell to be retained to the point where it breaks connection with the nerve. It dies. It's a dead cell. It's an omega cell. It's a cancer cell, if you may. Of course, they tell you everybody got some cancer cell floating around. It's because really there's some cancer there because of mineral deficiency that humanity daily experience. If there is no cancer, then there is no cancer cell. The fact that there is cancer cell is because there is cancer somewhere for it to come from. All right. So what are the factors that influence mineral deficiency? Violation of the laws of health. You know, we think about sunlight, fresh air, rest, and so on. These things simply affect the availability of minerals and nutrients, all right? But we'll talk about that some other time. And then we have not enough variety in the diet. Sometimes we end up eating a diet of the same exact food every day, morning and evening. And we expect to get 84 minerals that are necessary to build our bodies and keep us healthy. It doesn't happen. We eat food because we want the nutrient. If the liver doesn't have the nutrients then some place, some organ, some cell in the body is going to suffer. Why am I emphasizing the liver so much? Because the liver is the basic manufacturing plant of the body. It has to make all the beginning amino acid, which goes to replace every cell in our body. It supplies the raw material for every organ in the body. Basic raw material has to come from the liver. All right? So that's why I emphasize the liver. Another reason why we come up with mineral deficiency is because of poor food choices. Poor food choices. Junk food diet that just doesn't have the nutrient. And young people these days, they think that it's cute to eat potato chips and corn chips all day and refuse the fruits and the vegetable that their parents are giving them to eat. They think it's cute, but they don't realize that their body is the same body that's going to suffer from mineral deficiency, and eventually the end result of mineral deficiency, by the way, is cancer. All the other diseases is mineral deficiency. But at the end of the day, if one of those mineral deficiency diseases don't get us, then cancer will get us. If we last long enough, cancer most certainly will get us. Okay? As I mentioned earlier, the liver has to make some 5 billion different amino acids, provides the basic raw material. All right? These are the key factors, the key substance that the liver uses in its work. These are the majors. It can easily gotten a lot of the trace from the food and so on. But these are your major. If you're lacking in these, then your potential will affect every cell in your body and cause an increased amount of delta and omega cell formation. Water, very simple. But water is so important. So important. It is just amazing. Without water, we're hastening the footstep of cancer because the minerals will not be available if we don't have water. The next one is oxygen. Then we have calcium. Then we have iron, iodine, and vitamin A. These are your majors. In another talk, we will show you how these are put together and forming those amino acids, which goes for the replacement of the cells of the body. I cannot overemphasize this too much, all right? These, we need to at least pay attention to these, all right? Now, can I know if I am lacking in minerals before it becomes so obvious that even the physicians know about it? Is there a way we can know? And the answer is yes, because just considering the pH, the acid or alkalinity of the urine and the saliva will give you a good clue. And if you pay attention, friends, you can avert the danger, because if your pH is certain places, then you can be on the most perfect diet at that point. But what you need at that point is not that perfect diet. You need a diet that is tailored to move your pHs, to move your body chemistry back towards perfect. Typically, as we lose minerals and mineral deficiency, first of all, the first organ that will be affected is the lung tissue. The lung tissue has all 84 minerals. And so when the body begins to pull minerals from the lung tissue for a period of time, as conditions continue, then it's going to begin to pull minerals from the muscles. And then as it continue, then it pulls minerals from the bony structures. This is the progression, how nature will take minerals and so on. But here is a scale to show you something very unique. If a person started out with perfect chemistry, so they have perfect pHs, 6.40 over 6.40, the natural drift as minerals are lost progressively without any major trauma, which will cause it to skip a step, This would be the natural progression. Then the pH will move to alkaline over an alkaline, as in, let's say an example, 7.80 over 7.4 over, just alkaline, all right? And then as our deficiencies continue, and the key mineral that we want to look at is the calcium, because calcium is doing everything, have everything to do with where the pHs are moving. Then we go acid over alkaline. Okay, at this point, digestion is a challenge. At this point, there's indigestion, all kinds of gas and bloatedness. The weaker the gastric juice is, the greater we're going to see those problems. All right. Then it moves to, notice it make a switch and go alkaline over acid. Okay. And then it moves and then it goes acid over acid. When it gets to that point, you know, there are great deficiencies. The calciums are lacking, and such a person, because we're dealing with energy. That's what we're dealing with, balance and energy. And most people, unless they are having a diagnosis, are not going to be sit still long enough, rest enough to allow the food to increase their energy. Most people don't see the benefit of resting. And so they'll continue to eat, and they might eat a perfect diet at this point, but that perfect diet, the nutrients are still being taken from the lungs, from the muscle, and from the bones. Okay? Dr. Reams, I think he's the one that said this here. He says, with a double acid chemistry, there's an extreme mineral deficiency of a long duration. The calciums are especially deficient and the body reserves are becoming depleted. In these instances, the liver is not getting the minerals it needs to manufacture a sufficient amount of amino acid to maintain the reserve energy. Therefore, there is a great loss of reserve energy, which is the amount of real life the person really has, and deterioration is occurring at a rapid rate. Delta omega cells are forming rapidly, and that's trouble. Now, I must say, we know the foundation in Scripture. In Genesis 2, verse 7, it says, the Most High formed man from the dust of the ground, and then he breathed into his nostril the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So it's only natural, seeing that we were taken from the soil. What's in the soil? We have minerals. And when we are minerally deficient, it's going to throw off the natural rhythm of the body, and the process of decay and decomposition will set in. All right. Now I will open up for some questions. Do we have some questions? So if I may say, while you think about your questions, among the greatest thing you can do is have a variety in your diet and so on. You need to strengthen your digestion, strengthen your gastric juice, and you need to take care of your liver. If you take care of your liver and get a strong gastric juice, which typically, if you take care of the liver, is going to produce a strong gastric juice. But you can simply supplement your diet as well with some kind of digestive enzyme, HCl, or something like that. It will go a far way to help us to ward off the mineral deficiency conditions, and certainly put off the most dreaded of all, which is cancer, which is nothing but a mineral deficiency condition. All right. Is there any question for me this evening?
I have a
Okay. Mhm.
So how does the average person get to that perfect health? Because you show a chart of what perfect health should look like.
It is a process, as you notice. There are several numbers in the equation. And I simply pointed out the calcium factor with the pH. Usually what would happen is folks would get tested, see their numbers, and the tester would guide them, plan a diet, a nutrition and lifestyle program for them designed to move the numbers back towards perfect until when all the organs are rebuilt, then the numbers will come to be perfect. No number is perfect unless all the numbers are perfect. So it's a process and you get tested and so on. Any other question?
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. Peter, this is Sylvie. Say you have like a tooth and the tooth is like 80% the bone of that tooth is damaged, like 80%.
Mhm.
So is there a way you can regrow your tooth, your bone? So far,
Okay.
of all the research I've done, I've not been able to find that.
No, what you're saying is if you have a bad tooth, right? And is there a way that that can be replaced or
No. What I'm saying is not like the bone, right? Not the gum, the bone. It's deeper than that. And so it's 80% gone. Is there a way you can regrow that bone and not lose the tooth?
if the only reason why it won't regrow is because you don't have the right mineral. That's the only reason that it will not regrow. And one of the best, because one of the nutrient for the bone, for the teeth is a phosphate form of calcium. And the teeth enamel has the phosphate of calcium, P2O5, P2 and P5 calcium. And the greatest source of that kind of calcium in its colloidal form is a supplement they call Mincal. Mincal in the powder. That will do more than anything else to supply the minerals to the teeth. Of course, before it took from your teeth, it was taken from other areas. So when you use the product or any supplement, or even if you get the perfect diet and you got good, highly nutritious food, it will take some time to supply the other areas that have been lacking before the teeth, you see. But as far as we're in a supplemental form, the Mincal, not Mincal Forte, but the Mincal that's in the powder, that's pure colloidal soft phosphate, calcium phosphate, with 66 other trace minerals uh, in that compound, okay? So to protect the teeth, to protect the bones, to protect the joints, that in the diet, and it also do benefit for the nails as well. That's the Mincol, Mincol, in the powdered form. Sorry. All right.
Thank you so
You have a
much. Is it by
question?
daily?
Yeah, that's by daily.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any more question? Okay. So maybe I need to question you guys if you don't want to.
There is a couple questions in the chat.
Would you read them for me, please?
And I believe Sister Pamela has engaged with some of them and answered, but I'll
Yeah.
just ask for the sake of others. Boitumela Bella is asking, how much are your trainings? And before you answer that, There is another one by Vanessa. She's asking when is your next health retreat? When is your next? And I'm not sure if she means that session where she can come in and get treated, naturally, or she means a seminar like the one we have today. She
Okay.
can clarify.
Okay, we don't do any treatment. We're not a treatment facility. We leave that to medical persons. We simply teach people how to eat right and how to get the nutrients in their body so that their body can create healthy cells. And for that, the person can contact me privately, and so I can tell them what the schedule is for that. But they got my website there as well as numbers.
Brother Peter, I took her email, so you can send her.
Very good. Very good. Okay.
Question,
Yes.
do you supply these minerals that you are, like Mincol that you are promoting?
Yeah, we do. We do. We have them in our store. We do.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
Any-
There was a question about how much you charge, but I believe maybe you can answer that towards the end. In the
Yeah.
meantime, we have Joyce here saying, thank you so much, Elder Peter, for this presentation. How often is Zoom presentation offered?
Okay, we're now starting to do it once a month. Once a month. And if we have your information, we will most definitely send you the invitation. Because as you can see, all I dealt with was the cancer, just showing you, identifying what that monster is. We haven't dealt with other aspects of it. Let's see how to change the chemistry.
Thank you so much, Brother Peter, for that response. As you all heard, we're going to have these monthly seminars. We're going to have these seminars monthly. And the next seminar is March 21st. The next seminar like this one is March
Very good.
21st. We would request that if you can, please put your emails in the chat so we can get your information, so we can email you the relevant or pertinent information even as we go along. Please put your emails in the chat. Thank you very much.
Very good. Any more questions? You all see cancer in a different light?
And Joyce says that she needs to purchase the Mincol. Joyce, get in touch with Brother Peter.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, my wife's hand had her shoulder had slipped, and we went to the chiropractor. Took an X-ray of her bones, her shoulder. So, man, those bones look so good for your
Somebody is
age.
not muted.
Huh? Okay, someone
Somebody
needs
is
to be
not
muted.
muted.
Someone needs to be muted. And then I say, okay, I want to see what my joints look like. And so I had him to check my knee joints, and man, they look pretty good. And I said, okay, all right.
612-532-9313. Can you please mute yourself? 612-532-9313. Please mute yourself. Kindly.
Okay.
Thank
I
you.
just muted them. Okay. All right. So, any more question? So you see, we have a window of time that we're working with in a mineral deficiency state, or it's a normal state, because when the alpha cells, after they have spent their time, then they get to where they're delta cell. Now, they should be replaced in that stage as delta cells. But the only reason why they're not retained, why they're not replaced, is because the mineral is not there. And so it stays in, and then it breaks connection. It becomes a dead cell, an omega cell, a cancer cell. So minerals are very, very important, is what I'm saying. A variety in minerals is very, very important.
Okay. I see more questions in the chat. Sister Pamela, please go ahead and take note of the emails. There is also a few emails there. Go ahead and take note of the emails, and let me read out the questions here. Somebody is asking for, Vanessa is asking for a friend, and that's okay too. You can always ask for a friend. It says, if someone has been diagnosed with a benign tumor that is growing in the abdomen, will nutrients be able to help reduce the growth? So
Okay.
someone has a benign tumor in the stomach, it's growing. Will nutrients be able to reduce that growth?
Mhm. And based upon what we have just studied, those are dead cells, and they accumulate and are accumulating because the minerals are not there. So what usually happens, once you get the chemistry where the energy in is occurring, then nature will build new cells throughout the old cell, and whatever they call it will decrease until it goes out of existence. Okay, so that is the way of going nutrition. It
All
can
right.
happen.
Okay. Rebecca says, thank you for this presentation. How do I schedule an analysis? How do we schedule an analysis?
She can simply call. She can call tomorrow or so, or any time after today, and we can simply schedule the person. And those are the numbers on the screen, which will be good.
Okay. We also have Samsung. Sorry, I lost the question, but somebody said, I lost it again. Please include me for future meetings. We've captured that information. My name is Alice. That's Alice. And she says, thank you. This was very informative. I listened, watched while extremely busy at work. And she has a question here. She says, my cousin has stage 4 cancer of the liver that has spread to other organs. Is there still hope?
There's always hope. As long as there's bread, there's hope. And as we would look at it, as Doc would put it, if the reserve energy is not too low, if the reserve energy, which is the amount of real life force they have, then their body can respond. And once their body respond, then they can get well. The staging and indicating that the condition is spread and spread and spread. We don't need to be too much afraid of that. If the person is strong, then that situation could still have a turnaround. Our bodies are amazing. We're fearfully and wonderfully made. Okay.
All right. Again, Alice has another question. What do you think of CMOS then? It has 84 or more minerals. Should we consume it? What else beside bean call and diet to support the liver?
Very good question. Whatever source you can get nutrients, please go for it. Irish moss is excellent. Perella is excellent. Spirulina is excellent. Whatever, anything that can increase your nutrition base, your nutrient base in your body, that's an investment in the prevention of cancer. Okay. I mean, we know today, if we all eat out of Walmart, okay, the growers that supply Walmart, they are not necessarily thinking about producing nutritious food. They are thinking about how little they can spend and how much profit they can bring in. That's all they're thinking about. So when we make these places our primary food choices, we are actually doing like what they call it a Russian roulette, like having a gun, one bullet in the gun, and we spinning and just pulling it out of our head and hope, man, that's a terrible thing. It is terrible. So we really should. If we're eating out of Walmart and these box stores, we ought to be getting in some nutrition, that super nutrition, to make up for the lack of the food coming from these box stores. Okay. And so Irish mash is an excellent choice. Any other question?
I don't see any other questions in the chat unless
Right.
someone has questions that they want to ask verbally. Otherwise, there is no more questions or comments in the chat to address here.
Yeah. Stop screen share. Okay. All right. So one more question. So we can let's see. Let's see. Zoom. Okay. I'm trying to get myself out of screen share mode. Am I out of screen share?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Okay. All right. Let me stop recording. Stop recording.